Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you here today about what the evidence-based cybersecurity research group in Georgia State University has been working on during the last 2.5 years or so. For those who are not familiar with what we do, I'm going to give a little bit of a background of the group and our main goal. Then we're going to jump in immediately and talk to you about the resurrection of check fraud in the United States between between 2021 and mid 2023. The evidence-based cybersecurity research group in Georgia State University is really focused on trying to understand what works and what doesn't in the context of crime prevention and mitigation. As I assume viewers of this lecture know, there are so many tools, so many policies out there aimed towards preventing fraud. But at the end of the day, we are not really sure how many of those tools, how many of those policies really achieve their stated goal. And so what we attempt to do is answer this question by situating ourselves in the cybercrime and more specifically online fraud ecosystem, and collect data from important junctions within which offenders and enablers, offenders and guardians, offenders and targets meet each other, situate our tools, situate our technology in those important junctions, collect data in a systematic manner, in order to really try and understand what works and what doesn't in the context of cybercrime prevention as well as online fraud prevention. The group is involved in many projects, and unfortunately I don't have time to talk about everything that we do, but one of the important features of our work focuses on collecting data from the important junctions that enablers and offenders generate in their communication and meetings with each other. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page with respect to what enablers mean, let me just say that enablers are those individuals, those actors who at the end of the day help offenders to engage in different types of cybercrimes. So one important example for enablers will be folks who write malicious software and then give it to the offenders in order for them to start disseminate the malicious software or ransomware in order for the malicious software to take over victims' computers and then will be used by the offender to accomplish their goal. Another very important example of enablers are folks who facilitate underground markets on which offenders can meet other offenders. Offender can purchase all kind of commodities that they will be able to use in order to engage in all kind of criminal activities online. So the project I will talk about today focuses on this junction, and in that sense, it's important to emphasize that during the last 5 years or so, we've been heavily embedded in collecting data from many darknet platforms, but then because of one of the interaction and one of the engagement we had for one of the projects we launched in early 2019, we realized that many criminals are still using the darknet to a degree, many international actors, but more and more are moving to open shops in other platforms, and the most popular platforms are text message applications such as WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal and Jabber. Essentially what the criminals do is they open shops on those text message applications, which their layouts look something like what you're seeing on the screen right now. They simply open groups, chat groups on these platforms, and they invite their friends on those platforms, they start advertising all kind of illicit commodities that they have for sale, and then customers, their friends, can reach out and purchase all these commodities. So at this point, we are aware, and we were able to situate ourselves within thousands of markets. We're talking about markets which offer and support the sales of counterfeit products, markets which support the sales of guns, of drugs, and of course, the major topic of this conversation today, fraud markets. Fraud markets are very versatile, and they, on encrypted communication platforms, they offer all kind of illicit and interesting digital commodities customers are interested in. For example, many of the markets we oversee, the fraud markets we oversee, offer for sale compromised bank accounts, as you see on the example here. Oftentimes, what the criminals do is they hack into a website, they take over an account, then they take a screenshot, and they upload the account for sale on the platform we oversee. In other times, what they do is they upload videos proving the customers and their friends and their peers that they can actually log in to the account. As you guys can see in this example right here, the criminal logs into this bank account just to show that he has access, he or she has access. And once the offender logs in, you'll be able to see the account balance, and that is essentially an indication that the offender were able to take over the account. So, this is one example for the type of commodities the criminals have out there for sale. Another example is that of identities in fake driver licenses, like you see in the example here. So very, very good quality on the driver licenses. All states, the criminals get orders from all over the world, all over the United States, in order to manufacture those driver licenses. A lot of identities, a lot of fake documents that these guys manufacture, and of course, people selling schemers and other technology which helps the clientele to steal credit card information as well as other information. This video is really interesting because it the vendor is showing live what is it that the tool he developed can do. So you're seeing he's sitting right in front of an ATM. In a few seconds, you'll see a victim pulling in with the car. The victim will try to withdraw some money, and after the money was issued to the client, you'll be able to see all the information, all the account detail, as well as the personal detail of the customer on the offender screen, as you see right now. So a lot of really cool information that these guys are advertising on. And so what the evidence-based cybersecurity research group, as well as my team in GeoComply do, is we download the information to our computers in order to computers and servers in order to really try and understand important trends in the ecosystem. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is an example of our attempt to understand how many people joined into 6 of the markets we monitored in 2021. So you see you have 6 markets, you have a count of users, and on the screen you're seeing the fluctuation in the volume of people joining and sort of participating on those markets. The other important thing that we do with the data we download is we try to construct the social network of the groups we monitor. Oftentimes, what the criminals will do is they will vouch and offer support for different group members. What you're seeing on the left side of the screen is an example of how this is done. You see, a vouch for several actors and their ability to provide, for example, checks or bank logs or Zelle transfers to the relevant actors. And so what we do is we take those names, we take those vouchers, and we simply try to identify the key actors in the group. So this is another really interesting aspect of the work. And the last important thing that the group can do is really try and identify the the breakdown of emerging trends on the online fraud ecosystem. And the example we'll be discussing today and the focus of the presentation today will be a testimony for that. So, stolen and forged checks in the United States have always been an issue, but during the last 30 or 40 years, we have seen a reduction, less people engaging in this type of fraud. And so in line with this trend, when the group monitored systematically those channels and those markets, we systematically monitored in early 2020, mid 2021, we were seeing small numbers of checks, small number of videos which the criminals uploaded. The video that you're seeing on the screen is an example for that. Those videos were essentially brags of criminals saying that they can manufacture fake checks in high quality. We always counted those checks, and before mid 2021, on a weekly basis, we were able to find around 100 to 120 checks per week. But then at some point in late 2021, we're talking June, July of 2021, we started to see more and more checks like the checks you're seeing on the screen right now, with many posts offering to sell personal checks and business checks. Personal checks, which you could clearly see that the victim wrote the name on the check a few days ago. So, we observed this interesting trend. We started to sort of observe more and more checks and images of checks, like the image you're seeing on the screen right now, image of personal checks, images of business checks, images of checks coming from the IRS here in the United States, and many ATM deposit slips as well, like the deposit slips you're seeing on the screen right now. And so this was extremely interesting for us. And, we decided to take a sample of the markets we monitored at the time, and simply try and figure out what's happening in the ecosystem. So what we did was we selected 60 Telegram channels randomly from the thousands of channels that we were monitoring. We started downloading information from those specific channels to our servers on a daily basis, with the goal to analyze all the conversation, all the images, and all the videos that the criminal posts, and with the hope to really answer two questions, right? First, whether we are seeing this increasing trend, and second, what is the modus operandi? I mean, how do these guys actually get all those checks, and whether those checks are coming from? So to answer the first question, quite quickly we realized that between August 21 and January 2022, there was a sharp increase in the volume of checks that we were observing on the platform. So that was an indication that something is indeed developing here in the United States. Once we realized that that's happening, we decided to dive deeper and try and understand the modus operandi. So how do the criminals sort of get those checks, where those checks are coming from, and you know, what at the end of the day they're doing with those checks, and you know, how they sell those checks on the platform we oversee. So we dive deeper, and quite quickly we realize that we're looking at a very sophisticated supply chain, which is composed of different actors who are responsible for different operation within this really long and elaborated you know, criminal activity. The first group that we were able to find were people who went to USPS mailboxes in the middle of the night, opened them, and simply emptied them with no interruption. So the criminals are so brazen, and were so brazen at the time, that they actually uploaded those videos. And so what you're seeing on the screen right now is one of the actors we monitor, and one of his team member going in the middle of the night and opening those USPS mailboxes. Simply opening the USPS mailboxes with no interruption and empty them, taking the mail from them. So, you know, this video goes on and on for a few more seconds, and you know, the criminals actually show us a few other mailboxes the team empties. So, you know, we've seen the actors emptying the mailboxes. From this point, what they do is they simply take all the mail that they were able to collect in all those stops they had along the way, and they simply chauffeur the mail to hideout location. Unfortunately, you can't really see this video. This video will play.
And we still got to go back on tonight. Throw some slips right there. We open. We got to go through the rest of them.
So this video just shows you how many envelopes the criminals were able to steal in one heist, and the criminal essentially suggests that they still have a few more stops to do before they will able to call it a night. So, you know, empty the USPS mailboxes, put all the mail in the car, chauffeuring the mail to hideout locations, usually cheap hotel rooms where the rest of the gang is waiting, along with a few other individuals, usually drug addicts, who are paid maybe $100 a night, as well as are given with a Wendy's meal. And once the teams receive the envelopes, they start looking for the checks and some other identifiers, some other important information that the criminal could be used to facilitate fraud. So, you know, once receiving all the mail, the criminal starts sorting, opening the envelope and sorting the type of information they're able to get from the envelopes. As you guys can see here, stacking 4 stacks of checks, IRS checks, personal checks, business checks, money orders, debit cards. This is all come from the mail. And from that point on, the checks, especially the checks which were handwritten, move to another group of individuals within the criminal group. Those individuals are responsible for washing the checks, meaning taking the content from the check out of it, the handwritten content out of it. This is just one example video that the criminals uploaded. You see they take the check, they soak it in nail polish remover, antifreeze, other type of chemicals with the goal of removing the content from the check. And once the content is removed, the criminals simply offer the check for sale. Okay, we see them, removing the content and then, printing new content on the checks, offering all those checks for sale on the platforms we oversee. Okay, thousands of checks on a monthly basis. Once the checks arrive the markets, of course, there are many customers who are interested in purchasing this commodity. Prices at the beginning of this crisis, we're talking about late 2021, early 2022, ranges between $102 to $175 per personal checks. Business checks were sold for $250 a check. But if you placed a large order, the criminals will definitely negotiate, and you could have gotten better prices on the checks. We've talked to people who were able to purchase checks for $80 as well at the beginning of this crisis. Once you purchased in the past, you could have gotten the check over mail. Folks decided to go with USPS, and as a customer, once you got the check, you could have done two major things. You could have either printed a fake driver license, like you see in the picture here, along with a check, go to a local retail shop like Walmart or Kroger, and simply cash the check. You could have also deposited the checks in a bank account that you had, or that some family member had, or maybe you had like a drop account ready to go. And oftentimes what we were able to see were criminals recruiting walkers from the street in order to help them cash the checks. So what we've seen in the beginning of this and throughout this crisis, sort of speaking, we've seen the criminals recruiting homeless people, senior individuals, and asking them to, offering them $200 for them to sort of go into a bank and simply deposit or cash a check with a fake driver license. That is essentially what you are seeing here. What you're seeing here in the video. So the criminal send the walker into the bank in order to cash the check.
You left the walk, right? I know you left the walk. My walker.
So very sophisticated, very well coordinated operation that we're able to observe in early 2022. Since then, I mean, of course, we put together, there's a lot of media that media attention to this issue. We've put together a nice article out there as well explaining the modus operandi. But, since then, and unfortunately, due to the fact that this crisis is still ongoing in the United States, we are able to see a really interesting evolution in the context of the supply chain and the markets, which support the sales of stolen checks, stolen and forged checks. So let me just briefly demonstrate and talk about those important trends in the next couple of minutes. So the first important trend is less relevant, I would say, to financial institution, more relevant to the USPS. We're seeing a lot of their arrow keys, those keys that at the end of the day open the USPS mailboxes and allow the criminals to empty them. We see a lot of those keys being offered for sale on the markets. The keys goes for between $1,000 to $7,000, depending on the geographical area that the keys can be relevant for, as well as the number of boxes that the keys can open. Importantly, one key opens hundreds of USPS mailboxes. I know that USPS since then try to change some of the USPS mailboxes and make sure that those stolen keys are no longer relevant, but there's still many boxes out there that the keys can open. So we see those keys, the original keys. We now see also criminals working on replicas of those keys, like you're seeing in these two videos. Criminals demonstrating different types of keys that they have. In this example, you will see how the key is able to open residential mailbox in some of the buildings. And I think this essentially came from Chicago. So we see a lot of the keys being offered for sale on the markets, along with USPS uniforms. At the end of the day, the criminals want to make their life easy. They don't want to stay up late. And so now they're offering for sale USPS uniform in order to allow team members with the opportunity to go and empty the mailboxes in the middle of the day with no interruption. So that is one interesting trend that we have seen developing starting mid-2022. Another very important trend we are seeing is movement from washing checks to cooking checks. I showed a few minutes ago criminals soaking checks in a bath of nail polish remover or antifreeze or other chemical that allows them to remove the content. At this point, criminals still do that, but to an extent. The majority of criminals simply cook the checks, meaning they scan the stolen checks owner's signature to a relevant software that they work with, most oftentimes Photoshops. They are able to get access to the paper organizations and individuals print checks on, and they simply start manufacturing or cooking those checks. This is an example for one of the software they're using. We're seeing the original check right here and the cooked check on the top of the screen. With all the supply these guys are having right now, very difficult, and the quality of the supply that these guys are having nowadays, it's very difficult for the banks to actually detect that the checks the criminals cook are indeed fake. If you don't know what they're doing, the criminals also offer tutorials for this operation. So you can pay $200 and you will be getting a tutorial with respect to how to cook a check with Photoshop. As you see, this promo promise that if you purchase the tutorial, you'll be able to get the software, you'll be able to get business and personal checks templates, and a walkthrough video which will explain how to cook the check. Another very interesting trend is the availability of insiders services to look for any type of information you need in order to know what you need to know about the victim's account balance, as well as potentially personal details. We are seeing on many markets several menus available offering lookup services for individuals' social security numbers and the cars they're driving, their credit scores. You see an example of that price list to the left, and most of those services are really being offered by insiders who simply charge different prices for different searches that the customer would like to have. What you're seeing on the screen right now is an insider screenshot of a victim bank account. Very important for the criminals to know the available balance on the account when they cook the check and they write the amount on the check. And in addition, unfortunately, to pulling information about the account balance, we have been seeing checks being offered for sale along with the account holder Social Security number. In the case of businesses, we are seeing in many cases the checks being offered for sale along with the company employment identification number. So once you have this important information, you can take the fraud into the next level, which goes beyond to simply cash the check. Another interesting trend are the scans. We're seeing a lot of scans. So as I showed in the beginning of this talk, criminals in the past liked to send a physical copy of the check, but then they realized that they really don't have to do that. They can send the scans. They can simply send the account detail to the customer. But we definitely are seeing more and more scans. The last trend that we observe is really interesting fluctuation in prices. In the beginning, as I mentioned earlier, we were seeing checks being offered for sale for between $120 to $175 per personal checks, $250 for business checks. Now we're seeing the prices being way higher than that. Part of what we believe drive the price is the balance on the check, as well as as well as the fact that the criminal, as you guys can hear here, believe that you can make a lot of money from one single check. So we're talking about a very interesting and growing economy, illegal economy, that the checks at the end of the day as being able to support. So with that in mind, let me just give you the most recent stats of what we're seeing. I said at the beginning of this talk that we uncovered this issue in late 2021, early 2022. Unfortunately, we don't see a dramatic slowdown of the number of checks we identify on those specific markets. As you guys can see, we present here the number of checks we found from August 21 till April 2023. Numbers are still pretty high. In terms of the origin of the checks, there are definitely still hotspots where we find a lot of checks, and unfortunately the map hasn't really been changed a lot during the last year or so. Florida, California, Texas, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Virginia are still very much hotspots where we see a lot of checks coming from, unfortunately. So to conclude this talk, check theft and check fraud have resurrected, unfortunately, during the last year and a half or so here in the United States. And it is our belief that this epidemic that we're experiencing here in the United States have disrupted and will continue to disrupt the online fraud ecosystem dramatically. Because, as I indicated earlier, the act of cashing the check is just a starting point of using the identity of the individual in a large range of fraudulent operations. And if folks will not develop the tools, the set of policies, and the understanding that is required to develop from the ecosystem, unfortunately, I believe that what we'll see is that things will only get worse till they get better. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to answering questions if you guys have any.